Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of GnWC Weekly. It is Thursday, March 17th, St. Patty's Day in the year 2016, which it is right now. I'm the Duke, and I'm joined by my good buddy.
And I'm Rick James.
What? Hey!
See, he didn't cut me off.
I missed the cutoff. We're going to roll with it.
Because you were so concerned about the date stuff.
I know.
Forgot all about it, so that's why I said it, so you had to do it over. Just so you can cut me off properly next time.
You suck. No, let's move on. Let's roll with it. I'll beep it out or something. Sure, I will.
Gotta keep you on your toes.
I always edit things.
They're not all long 1990 retro commercial rants.
Fair enough. That was good though. I like that one. So
nice and simple.
But that's Angry Larry, and we're gonna jump right into it today. Try not to ramble too much, even though we've already done it. And
I'm gonna sneeze a lot, so I better hope I hit both mute buttons.
That's awesome. And Larry, why don't you just take us into some news and notes, man?
Yeah, I'm not going to get too crazy with the news and notes because, like I've said before, I'm really trying not to get spoilers on the road to WrestleMania. But two noteworthy things that we should mention is one being Bray Wyatt has a back injury. And this played into his non-involvement at the WWE, what do you call it? A house show called Roadblock?
Yeah. The Roadblock house
it's
show.
why he was never tagged in. It's why he was never wrestled. He hasn't been active.
I suspected that.
A little while. And I think the last time he actually had a one-on-one match was early in March on Monday Night Raw. Everything has been tag team matches or him just at ringside since then. So he may not have anything at WrestleMania because of his back injury and not necessarily them trying to protect Bray Wyatt as maybe we initially thought, or them leading up to Brock Lesnar versus Bray Wyatt and speculating Dean Ambrose is going to do something else. Clearly that's not the case now, but everything that Bray Wyatt hasn't been doing is because of the back injury, and that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Let's come back to that afterward, by the way.
Yeah, the second news item here is Sting is going to retire officially at the Hall of Fame ceremony at the end, in WrestleMania weekend. He has what Edge had that ended Edge's career, the whole, what is it, stenosis of the neck or whatever it's called?
Spinal stenosis.
Yeah, he has that. And the injury he suffered at the match with Seth Rollins really hurt him. And he hasn't been able to recover since. So it's more than likely he is going to end his career officially in his speech at the Hall of Fame. And it stinks because there was so many possibilities there. And he's 56 years old or however old he is. But there was a lot still on the table because of never has been done befores that he could have been incorporated with. Sting versus Undertaker at WrestleMania. Sting winning the World Heavyweight Championship. Sting being any kind of champion in the WWE. Being there to put guys over. Being there to have interject himself in higher level feuds to defy authority. A lot could have been done, and it's such a shame that it ends this way. And I feel bad, and I still hold out hope that he has involvements here and there for nostalgia's sake and for all that, because you don't like to see guys go like this.
No, that's extremely unfortunate. But if it ended up like Edge's, it's more a matter of can't get medically cleared. Like, permanently not cleared. But it would be cool
or
to
on the
see
person
him
that's saying they just don't want to do it because they don't want to risk anything else thereafter. Like, they're smart about it, and they're not going to be like the football player who'll risk cutting off his finger just so he can get back into a game on a meaningless play. You know that analogy? Yeah,
that's true.
You can't go in, broke a finger, oh, cut it off.
Yeah,
it's like, no, don't be an idiot.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's sad and really disappointing more than anything else because he's the only guy I can think of that never crossed over into WWE that had an impact. Well, I mean, he's had an impact recently in the past couple of years, but never hit that main event title run kind of impact that everyone else that jumped over from WCW had.
For the most.
I mean, even DDP,
your big guys
who may not be considered a WWE main eventer, DDP had his feud with the Undertaker and all that. So everyone who came from WWE in that era after it closed sort of had their own thing, the top guys. And Sting was never the guy, obviously, who came over. And then when he was there, it's like he loses to Triple H last year at WrestleMania, and then gets hurt against Rollins. But you know what could
Yeah.
have been, right?
Yeah, that's unfortunate. And then there's one injury you're leaving off. That was the injury to Neville, which I'm sure anyone
Oh
who
yeah,
would listen to this
yeah,
would
my
know
bad.
that. So no, it's okay.
Well, I mean, I send you so many injuries through the course of the week
I know, which is unfortunate.
because everybody's getting injured at house shows. Charlotte hurt her nose, and Neville broke his ankle and maybe part of his shin, fractured his shin at on Raw last Monday.
Yeah.
And then what else was there? Was a couple. Emma Herter got knocked out during a match. There's so many NXT stuff. People getting hurt too. It's just every week, 2 or 3 people are getting knocked out during weekend house shows. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, it's just like more shows, more wear and tear, more opportunities for something to happen. So
Yeah. All right, so
more
let's get
big
into
spots.
this
But
now.
let's get into some positive.
Yeah, I did
sort
my
of.
on my channel. I did my usual post pay-per-view roadblock recap and reaction show. Duke, I never heard your take on roadblock. Why don't you what'd you feel about it?
Well, first of all, the wrestling was good for the most part. There was only
Good, but good like good in what way?
like the in
Special
ring.
pay-per-view live event way?
No. I
Good
mean
for a house show?
the
Good
in
for a TV show?
ring the in ring action was good. People told pretty good stories. Yes, some of those stories didn't exist before that day, so very house show oriented. But yes, there was no long term story supported in any way. Um, Necessarily, but that's actually something I'm about to get into. Um, but um, but yeah, I mean the only match that really fell flat. The crowd was okay. I mean they were good at times, and then they were like, "Where are you guys?" at other times. But that may have been pairings in the ring, particularly in the case of Stardust and Sami Zayn. The crowd was so divorced from this match. It was strange. It was extremely peculiar because you had people like singing Zayn's theme song when he came out, yet it was like they didn't know who he was when the match started. And I heard a take on this earlier today, where someone said it was Wade Keller. He was on Stone Cold's podcast, and he was talking about how it could be that you have like these contrasting gimmicks in those two guys, and it was messing with people. And I could see that because Sami Zayn is normally in these fights that are almost a shoot, right? You've got his personal issues with Kevin Owens, and then his battle for respect with Cesaro and Samoa Joe and Finn Balor, like all these things that have this root in the here, the now, the real, in a shoot, right? Then there's Stardust. It's just like someone who, as you talked about on the armbar, so committed to the gimmick, it's ridiculous. And I applaud him for it because so many people just wouldn't do what Cody's doing, but he knows his place, and so he's not trying to move up the card anytime soon because he knows it's not the time. It doesn't make sense, and he's a great guy in the middle of the card, and so he's committed to Stardust. That's who he is. If Stardust is going to get a run, or they want Cody Rhodes back for a run at something, maybe the IC Championship once Owens and everyone moves up, then okay. But for now, Stardust it is. So he's still Stardust. He's the cosmic, he's from wherever, the fifth dimension or all his taglines, right? So not really grounded in reality. He's zany. He's weird. No pun intended, by the way. Doesn't really go, despite that he's zany, doesn't really go with Sami Zayn, who's more this is a fight for my life, fight for respect, fight to show that I've still that I can still do something in the ring guy. So anyway, I spent a long time on that match. To move on to the main event, I thought the main event was excellent. I thought it was one of the better, just like real wrestling matches I've seen in years.
Just to interject 1 second before you continue, it was a great main event if we all put aside our expectations on what WWE should do.
Right, and that's where I'm going to get to that in just a second. Yeah, you're exactly right. Personal feelings aside of let's write the course, WWE. Don't have this match with Triple H and Roman at Mania. You put all that aside and you watch the match. And if you can like go back and just watch the match as a match and watch and even watch the opening promo for the for the night and what leads up to that match, it's really really good. No massive spots. You have the, Dean has his elbow to the outside, and then they do the table spot because it's WWE. A main event has to have a table spot or something for the main event. I think I said that twice, but anyway, no massive spots. You just have a good, solid, pretty old school match, and it was really really good. And like Larry pointed out on the armbar, you had one of the just most interesting finishes you've probably ever seen in wrestling, that if you're paying attention, it protects Dean in such a multi-layered way. It's unbelievable. So Dean makes one mistake. He ends up down for the count on the outside of the ring. Triple H is just doing what he can do to recover inside the ring. Dean, being the fighter that he is, the scrappy dude who just never will give up, beats the 10 count only to walk right into essentially a trap, right? And then sort of loses clean. But he had to
that was awesome.
He had to overcome all odds, and then like Larry said, to walk right into a finisher, that just never happens. Like the only time you ever really see that happen is maybe in AA, but typically there's something before that, or there's some kind of scuffle or something or whatever. But he literally like walked stood up into a pedigree.
You're so fixated on knowing that Dean Ambrose is going to answer the 10 count and get back in the ring. Like, oh, we've seen this before. He's going to be on the outside, teeter, wobble, and then he'll get in before the 10 count. Then he gets in only for Triple H to like almost in one motion grab him pedigree. And wow, it ended like that, huh?
Yeah.
I've never seen that before.
And it felt dirty, right? Because so many people want Dean to go over in that match, and again, the course to be corrected, blah 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 blah. However, look at it in what it was. Dean was so protected in that match. He looked like $1 million. He got an honest 3 count on.
Yeah, protected, and you didn't even mention the 3 count yet.
Yeah,
protected. Yeah, that way.
Yeah, he got an honest 3 count on the the WWE World Heavyweight Champion. There was just a slight technicality that turned it off, which that's the second time it's happened to Dean, by the way. So it's yeah. I mean, honestly, Dean. I don't know. So I'm echoing some things I heard because it's things that I was thinking as these guys were talking. So if you haven't listened to Stone Cold's latest podcast where he breaks down Roadblock with Wade Keller, it's a good listen, because you'll start, as they're talking about things, or at least this happened with me, as they're talking about things, I'm kind of getting to point, because they ramble on like we do, and so you can start getting to points ahead of where they do, because you're like, oh, well, then this, and then they'll say it. It's like, yeah, so like the whole Sami Zayn's more grounded in reality matches than he is in a match with Stardust. When they were talking about that, I'm like, they Wade Keller start talking about the gimmicks and stuff, and I'm like, well, Sammy's more grounded in reality. And like 3 seconds later, he says, whereas Sammy is this more gritty underdog, reality-based fighter, you know. And so it's just like, okay, so it's easy to get on the same page with him, is what I'm saying. But one of the things that I could echo from them about what happened here was it may not have been a statement necessarily, but Roman Reigns dang sure should treat it like a statement of, hey, Dean Ambrose just went 24 minutes in a World Heavyweight Championship match. You better be able to at least pull that off and make it extremely believable and not have to do a bunch of crazy spots with stupid stuff and weapons and so on and so forth. Like there was nothing required to make this more serious than it was, than two guys doing the work in between the ropes for the most part. There were a couple. There's one spot that's just sort of a signature spot from the guy with Dean jumping to the outside, and then there's the table spot, which was more for dramatic effect and to pull off the ending, so that there was a reason the babyface lost. Other than that, everything happened in the ring, and nobody was winded. You got a 46-year-old who looks like $1 million doing it up in Triple H, and you've got Dean Ambrose, who's this up-and-comer that we all want to see him be the guy, but maybe he's not quite there yet, and that's part of my overall point I'm going to make in just a second, I promise. But man, that was a main event match, and that was an old school, you're 6 minutes off of a 30-minute Iron Man match, right? So that's a legit, serious, significant main event match of a caliber we haven't seen in quite a while, in my opinion. You don't get a match like that out of Brock Lesnar. You don't get a match like that out of Undertaker, and I'm not denigrating those guys. It's just Undertaker, he's older. Brock Lesnar, it's Suplex City. That's his gimmick. It's not there's nothing methodical. The guy against him does the methodical part, and then Brock destroys him because ultimately Brock is the beast, which we can get into when we get to our WrestleMania preview show, because then you've got Dean Ambrose versus Brock Lesnar. So you got this essential, the WWE's Iron Man, as he calls himself, against Brock Lesnar, who's, 12-minute match, look like a scary monster, and leave. So anyway, I say all that to say, unbelievable match. And to get to my overall point, I wanted to rant really bad, and I felt really annoyed at this, and was echoing some of the same stuff that anybody else was saying. What changed in the storyline? You gave us all this hope. You did this got your nose booking, and I was thinking that like minutes before Dean did the got your nose on Triple H. So I'm like, wow, that was weird and literal. But yeah, it's I wanted to rant. But ultimately, after listening to that podcast today and just sort of thinking about it afterward, I'm like, because they made a statement during that podcast, and I've heard several people say this, and I never understand why, and it clicked for me today, and it was a question I asked myself rather than hearing them say anything. What they said was, Dean's not quite ready to be like the guy yet, but he's well on his way, especially after Roadblock. Like, he was already on his way there, and Roadblock just like catapulted him in that direction. And I'm like, why do people keep saying Dean's not there? Because I feel like most of the fans are saying, we want Dean, we want Dean. And then it finally clicked. When I asked myself that question, I'm like, because if Dean's the champion, you want a babyface champion to take anyone who steps up to the plate. Well, that means Brock Lesnar steps up to the plate. Well, he's facing Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. That means Randy Orton, when he comes back, steps up to the plate. That means all these veterans who are. That means when Cena's back, he steps up to the plate. So all these guys, like Dean Ambrose, has to go through the who's who of the top of the roster at that point as the guy. And can you really see, I mean, especially if you look back on the last year or two, which, the Shield has been on the main roster for 2 years, believe it or not, which is not that long. So can you see a guy who's been here for 2 years and has kind of been like the scrappy underdog of that faction being the guy over all of these, like I said, who's who of WWE right now, if he hasn't established himself as a contender over those, or as a victor over those guys? So maybe that means we do see Dean win at Mania. Maybe it doesn't, but I think he's going to look as good or better than he did at as good as he did at Roadblock or better at Mania, whether he wins or loses. But he's got to sort of run the gauntlet now, and I never thought about it that way until today. So my point being, we have to think more long term, and I know it's hard to do, but people are so pissed off about Roman Reigns being, I hate this terminology, rammed down their throat. But you know what? We always talk about how WWE never has a long-term plan. Roman Reigns is a long-term plan. He's 2 years worth of a plan. This is a 2-year storyline. The Shield was all, and Rollins getting the championship and all this. It was all part of Roman's storyline, and his struggles with being brothers with Dean but having to fight Dean. This is all part of Roman's story. And if you saw him on SmackDown tonight, it was a really legit kind of what you want out of Reigns' promo. And hopefully we see that on Raw too, where he just comes out and he's kind of a jerk and just throws the mic when he's tosses the mic over the rope when he's done, and he's done. He doesn't stand there and wait for the crowd to approve of him. He doesn't do anything that has possibly annoyed you in the past. And yet SmackDown is pre-recorded, but it seemed like it was all done in one shot, and in my opinion it was really good. Is it totally redeeming of some of the things that have annoyed us about him? Probably not, but it's a good direction, and it's a direction a lot of people have been calling for a long time, and it's something that could easily be a heel or maybe in more of an anti-hero, which I think that probably leads into something Larry wants to talk about in a bit, if not now. But I just think thinking long term is something people need to do more with wrestling, because guys held championships for years back in the day, and we're pissed off when it doesn't change every 3 months. And I know that's not what we're pissed off about, but ultimately that's what we're pissed off about, is that it's not on our guy, or it's not on a guy that is getting all the cheers when we're cheering for him too, or a guy that's getting all the boos even. People are okay with heels taking it sometimes. Of course, I say that, and every time a heel gets it, some people have like a mass outcry about it, whether it be Sheamus or Triple H, quote unquote, putting himself over or whatever. It's or Cena. He's not a heel, but everyone wants him to be. But it's I just think people need to think long term, and that includes WWE. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like if you're paying attention, they kind of have been. it may not be the story you want, but at least they've committed to a story that they're going to tell, and most likely it's going to come to fruition, and it's maybe not final chapter, but the conclusion of this 2.5 year arc is most likely coming up at WrestleMania Texas. So they're thinking more long term than we think they are, but you never know. Things backstage, like the Bray Wyatt thing, like we always want to harsh on things for not happening in our timing and stuff, and there's unforeseen circumstances to things that alter massive timelines and creative and financial investment they've put in, not only talent but people around that talent. Who knows what, if Brock versus Bray was already supposed to be happening and he's been walking around with an injury, right? So anyway, that's there's my long-winded talk on Roadblock and just how I'm going to start. Like, I'm going to start watching matches for what they are and watching shows for what they are, as opposed to, I do want to speculate on where they're going and critique and stuff like that, but I'm going to try to take a more, not trying to sound haughty here, but maybe a more mature approach to things and go, there's things I don't know, and there hopefully is a long-term plan with this. And if it takes a really long time and nothing is really happening, then I'm going to harp on that. But like the thing with Reigns, I'm kind of done with complaining about it, because number one, what good is complaining about it going to do? And at this point, obviously. And number two, at least they committed to a long-term plan, and that's kind of what we get pissed off about all the time. Or what I've been known to get pissed off about is, man, I just wish they had some sort of, like, it's like they have no plan. Well, they really have had a plan for this dude. And it's been 2 years strong, and it's still going. And it seems like he's making a step toward where people have been calling for a while. So we'll see. Maybe they've been listening this whole time and they're just playing it out, or maybe they'll be embarrassed at at WrestleMania in some way. But ultimately, if people are talking about it, that's all that really matters. That's all that's ever really mattered in wrestling.
That's why David Arquette was the greatest WCW champion ever then.
That's awful.
That's people talking about it.
Now,
and I want to say that I am not going to be mature. For those who did not read my listen to what I did on my channel, I disagree with Roadblock being a good show, only because it was a this year created show, a special created this year. So why are we going to create something and have no nothing happen? We're not going to extend feuds. We're not going to create new feuds. We're not going to cause anything to change thereafter. We're just going to televise a show, promote it. It's going to be, it is what it is, and then we're going to move on from it. That's why I didn't like it. And secondly, you can have long-term feuds and goals, and this whole Roman Reigns thing, Royal Rumble from 2014, pretty much it's stemming from. But when the fans aren't liking it, the fans aren't liking it. So you can appreciate their commitment to it, and then you got to say, well,
it does look out of touch. I get it. It does look out of touch. But I guess my counter to that, my slight addendum to that would be, the plan was in place before that. The plan was already in motion before that, and then he got injured. But he apparently rehabbed from the injury better than they expected, so they said, well, let's just get him back on this train. Now, of course, the fans were like, why? Why would you do this? And then there were lots of extremely questionable creative decisions in the process of how to treat his character So I'm not saying any of that was ultimately right. I'm just saying they stuck with a
it's
plan. That's what
they
I'm saying.
they created something in this Roadblock special that was created for the idea that it's going to disrupt WrestleMania, or has the possibility to disrupt WrestleMania
Fair.
in a position where what they have currently now is not being recepted by the fans in the arena. Forget about the internet. Forget about the humanoids at home with their, laptops or whatever the kids are using nowadays. It's not being recepted well by the 10,000 people in the arena they're in every night. So they've created something to change the game, to change the focus, to have the possibility to alter WrestleMania. And then you had nothing but a house show. And matches, good finishes, guys we want to see on TV but don't necessarily get the chance to see on TV aside. It was a wasted 2.5 hours on a Saturday night because nothing, and not to say that nothing has to happen, like something has to happen every pay-per-view. You have to have a title change or a heel turn or a re-debut or whatever.
It was the way it was promoted.
The way it's promoted, this never existed before. But they're going to create it. They're going to speculate it, and they're going to put on the horizon that things could change, all while promoting Shane McMahon trying to win Monday Night Raw, which somehow changes the whole WWE. And nothing happened. And that's why it was a terrible idea. And you're still now in the sense where, like, listen, it was all, what's the word in the comic book industry? It was all non-canon.
Yeah.
It happened, but now it didn't happen kind of deal because no one's really talking about it anymore. Dean Ambrose had 700 minutes of on-camera time this today on SmackDown, and I don't think he ever mentioned Roadblock or Triple H once.
Right.
It's all gone. It's out of the history books.
Moving on. Yep.
So why did it exist in the first place?
You're right. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying.
No, I'm not saying you're saying I'm wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong, essentially. But when it comes to things like this is why fans are getting pissy. And I said to you before we even started to record today, we're guilty of this too, because we always want something to happen and we can't look past the fact that something didn't happen. And part of our quote unquote jobs here is to say, like, all right, well, we're not going to call this match with a definitive winner. We're going to think of all the reasons why we're going to get swerved, who's going to interject themselves into this, and what feud is going to stem from this, maybe possibly beyond this one initial match. So we're making a lot of, not even bold predictions, we're making a lot of predictions where, like, in reality, none of this stuff has to happen. If we try to predict a 7-match pay-per-view, we're calling for 5 swerves, 1 surprise return, 3 title changes, and then, like, an outcome no one ever would consider. And in reality, it just becomes a bland, dry, safe pay-per-view where every match is within itself with no additional people or screw jobs or anything. And then we're just like, well, why didn't they do that? It's ridiculous. Well, yeah, because we're kind of doing that to ourselves, ruining our good time. So I understand where you're coming from, more mature that way, where
I'm still going to come up with all kinds of crazy stuff. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong.
But but I think with Roadblock, and they were pushing the Shane McMahon stuff too, not for Roadblock, but for WrestleMania, where
and it seemed to all go together.
The old man is not in touch with reality anymore, and Shane's going to be the savior to come back and put wrestling back on the map. And then they have a special that could put wrestling back on the map, so to speak, by just totally blowing out whatever plans they were supposed to have for WrestleMania. And then they didn't do it, and then they quickly move on. And it's like,
and act like it barely happened. Yeah,
and like I said on my thing, what did Roadblock really mean for the WWE? No one bought the network for it. No one's staying subscribed to the network for it. People only got pissy watching it. Maybe some people enjoyed a new special, but those people never speak up. It's only the negative people that speak up. So what did Roadblock necessarily do for the WWE and the WWE network? Only created
contempt
content, but really, it really just cost them money.
No, I said contempt.
Oh,
But yeah,
well, it's also
yeah,
content for the network too, for the
sure,
history archives, but it just cost them money to
yeah,
get people to Toronto to hold the show in Toronto while holding a show that had probably better star power for the people who might buy the WWE network in Atlantic City, New Jersey. AJ Styles versus Kevin Owens 30-minute Iron Man match. That
right,
seems like it's a pay-per-view worthy event, you know, but
right.
whatever. Yeah, if anybody doesn't know what the house show results were, look up Atlantic City, New Jersey house show results for that day, and then compare it to the Roadblock matches, and kind of decide for yourself which one of them you would have rather seen televised. I'm going with the Atlantic City show myself. But moving on, though, Duke, I think I don't know which point I want to get to here. I think we're going to save the heel and the face turn stuff for next week,
Okay,
because I have a lot to say
because
on that, and
it'll
I
still
might want to
be.
do a little bit more research. And we've kind of killed
It,
our budget for time already.
yeah, I'm sorry. That's me.
So let's talk about one thing here.
Yeah, it's still
And
relevant no matter what. So
yeah, so I have two things here that I want to do. I want to discuss WrestleMania, the only thing that can happen in the WrestleMania main event, in my eyes, that will win Roman Reigns over in the fans' eyes. I'll get to that after this one point, though, or this one topic I want to discuss, and that being Dolph Ziggler. Now, Dolph Ziggler lost a match against Triple H on Monday on Raw. Duke, what was the stipulation of that match?
the stipulation of that match was he could have any match of his choosing at WrestleMania if he won. I don't know
Okay.
that there was anything if he lost. They almost implied he'd be fired if he lost, but obviously
They almost implied like he would never be on the card if he lost.
right, exactly.
If you win, you'll be at WrestleMania and you can pick your opponent. If you lose, you're not even going to be at WrestleMania. That's what I took away from that. But
Yeah,
today on SmackDown, they kept questioning Dolph Ziggler's plans for WrestleMania. Will he be in the Battle Royal? Will he be fighting The Miz in a rematch or whatever Mauro Ranallo was saying? If he was not supposed to be at WrestleMania because of the stipulation on Monday night, then they goofed and they didn't edit it out or re-announce it or whatever. So to me, it just seems like they said, I think Lawler said it, he lost his blank check for WrestleMania. When in reality, he can still be in any match at WrestleMania. So this changes what I'm going to say a little bit, but it still goes the line, like you say, it's still relevant because of the promos Dolph Ziggler has been doing and his interactions with Stephanie McMahon. Now, what if Shane McMahon versus The Undertaker is still not Shane McMahon versus The Undertaker? Duke, I'm going to say this until the day of WrestleMania. I have never been convinced Shane McMahon is fighting Undertaker at WrestleMania. Never. Never once. I don't care about all the training videos they've been showing of Shane McMahon or whatever they've been doing on the Twitter or the website.
the tout.
I am not convinced Shane McMahon, a non-wrestler, is going to be fighting The Undertaker, the legend of WrestleMania, for a match to control the company or to control Monday Night Raw. Never once been convinced of this. Now, I'm still going to be saying this the day of WrestleMania, even as Shane McMahon walks to the ring.
During their entrances.
During the match, I'm still going to be saying this. And I think that every day that passes, like I'm 100% convinced of it when it was first announced, but every day that passes, it goes down by like 0.5%. So like I'm at like what 93.5% now positive that it's not going to happen. What if somehow Dolph Ziggler's match at WrestleMania turns out to be versus The Undertaker for control of Monday Night Raw? He's had the problem with Stephanie. He's had the problem with Triple H. He'll want to see Shane McMahon win more than anyone else on this roster because everybody else really has no on-screen attachment to Shane winning. None. There's not one single person on this roster that has an on-screen visual attachment pro Shane. There's only McMahon, there's only Undertaker, and there's only Shane McMahon and Stephanie and Triple H who have even made sides, right? Am I wrong in that?
You're not wrong,
Okay.
which is part of the weirdness of the story, by the way. The fact that
Right.
no one else has interjected themselves into the story.
Right. The company's on the line and no one's making
No one
signs. Like
else,
Kevin,
no one else is even talking about it.
right? Yet they're putting this above everything else, but at the same time, they're kind of not even making. Kevin Owens is not even rooting for Vince McMahon. You know what I mean? The heels are not even saying, you know, when Undertaker. Like they're not even. It's mind-boggling how they have a main event in the heavyweight title match, which isn't going to be treated as like their focal points, getting like the last segment on Raw, but they have the last segment on Raw being something that nobody else is even talking about except for the announcers and the parties involved. So my theory here is that Dolph Ziggler will be wrestling The Undertaker and win control of Monday Night Raw for Shane McMahon. And in doing so, Shane McMahon could even, and this is like the bold prediction part of it. The other prediction I really feel strongly about, but this is like kind of the aside fun part. In doing so, Shane McMahon will grant Dolph Ziggler an office position, which is a step above Stephanie and Triple H. He's their boss now. And I think that's fun. I think that goes, it's like a fun story that could go a long way after WrestleMania to keep the authority in the picture and to keep Brock relevant and all that stuff. But bottom line is, I'm still not convinced Shane McMahon's wrestling. Dolph seems to be the savior because he's the only other person involved. And if not in the match, then he's the one that helps Shane win somehow. Somehow he gets in the cage or he's been under the ring the whole time, whatever it is. But I feel that's going to happen. Or, Duke, there's my other theory, is we hear Michael Cole yell, zigzag on Shane, like 40 times. And Dolph actually becomes corporate Dolph. And he joins the authority because he can't beat him, so he joined them. And he helped Undertaker win and keep control to Vince McMahon. So those are just two little things that I thought about with the help of reading your notes from Raw.
Yeah, I don't know. I love Ziggler on Team Shane. I think that works for who his character is now, and the things he's been saying, and he's repeated it several promos now, where he said, "I'm just gonna all I need. It's just gonna be that one time that I actually take a win from you guys, and it's gonna matter. It's gonna." It's gonna be, and people will realize who I am, so on and so forth. And it's just like
right.
that character should somehow win in a way that sticks it to the authority. And seriously, the best way to do it is you're either the guy or somehow part of the Undertaker losing at Mania. Now, that's in that speaks very, very fluidly to next week's topic of who's the baby face, who's the heel.
Or even next week's topic of what is the current legacy of Undertaker now, and if he's going to lose to Shane McMahon as opposed to just retiring off of a win against Bray Wyatt or whatever his last match was. I think that was it, right?
Yeah.
So
and
his last Mania match. I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah, I got you. Well, speaking of Bray Wyatt, by the way, there's another scenario. That's sort of the so it seems like Ziggler would be more of the babyface scenario for Shane, but then you have sort of the heel, anti-hero, whatever people are these days scenario of that Bray promo from SmackDown. Was it actually on SmackDown or was it just on YouTube? Yeah.
I didn't see it today on SmackDown. Okay. Honestly.
So it was on YouTube.
I left for a little while. I watched an NXT when they were recapping the Undertaker stuff. I turned off recaps. So.
Okay. It was on YouTube and they put a SmackDown logo on it, so I assumed it got aired at some point, but I missed the open of
it wasn't SmackDown. On the open. The only place it could have been was in between them saying up next the Undertaker recap from Monday night and Dean Ambrose laying out the social media because that's when it came back to SmackDown. So.
Okay. Yeah, I missed the open and sort of that same section. So
I already watched it on Monday. I don't need to watch it again on Thursday.
Yeah, exactly. But on YouTube, on WWE's YouTube channel, there's a video of Bray essentially saying. So remember at Roadblock, he said he made a deal with the devil, and yes, we know, kayfabe aside, he's injured, right? But the Wyatts have never necessarily had to do moves to be involved in a match. So because of their entrance, the wacky weird screen grab thing, and then they're in the ring or whatever. So he talked about his deal with the devil to make it a handicap match at Roadblock, right? So this goes back to, did that have any impact on anything? Well, maybe in this one instance it did, because piggybacking on his deal with the devil from Roadblock, Bray in this promo essentially said he was going to interfere in all of the major matches of WrestleMania. He mentions The Undertaker. He mentions Brock. He mentions Triple H. So he essentially, sort of the heel / anti-hero type thing. I made a deal with the devil, and I'm going to make sure these three guys lose. He didn't out and out say that. He just said, "What's the king without his kingdom?" in reference to Triple H. What's the Reaper without his? I forget how he said it. I forget how he said it, and he said something about what's the beast without his something. So, without his teeth, that's what he said. So, essentially, he said that he's going to somehow have an impact on all those matches. You put that together with Deal with the Devil, and that kind of makes it seem like he's on Team Shane. So I don't know. We'll maybe we'll see more of where that takes us. Maybe it's more garbage from Bray Wyatt.
I think it's more Bray Wyatt. I think we got into this discussion once before where you read a lot into a Bray Wyatt promo. And I'm like, I just think it means a 6-man tag match for the next pay-per-view. And I think it's just, with Bray Wyatt, it's just garbage, I guess, is the best way you just described it. But I know you didn't mean it that way, but I'll say it that way. I think Bray Wyatt speaks to speak in riddles. So you always have that feel of he's that, is enigma a word, or a feeling that he's always that mysterious guy that
could impact anything, which they were initially, and then they became
700 pay-per-view losses later. It's like, I don't even understand this guy, and I don't even want to hear him talking anymore. I just want to see him winning once in a while.
Yeah, and maybe I'm just reading too much into it, but like I said, between Deal with the Devil and
I didn't even, like, when I probably watched the promo and didn't even read into the part with Deal with the Devil, Beast, King, Kingdom, and relate him to wrestlers. I'm just like,
no, he didn't say that.
At the mouth again, and I'm just thinking he's just.
No, the Deal with the Devil thing was from Roadblock, and then the other thing was from that thing today. So.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah,
so that's why.
You may not have seen it.
Okay,
but I'll send you the link after this. It's really quick.
The Deal with the Devil thing, I kind of thought that maybe that was the whole, they're going to turn it into a handicap match thing. So he made a deal with the devil. Now all of a sudden it's a 2-on-1 match instead of a 1-on-1 match. That's what I got out of that. But that's the only explanation I came up with it. What's that?
Yeah, it may have just been for that time, is what you're saying. Yep.
Maybe. But let me get into something.
But I'm kind of done with Bray. But yeah, it was a thought. So I just wanted to put it out there. So
listen, it could happen. I've said this to you on air, off the air. I don't even remember at this point, but. Like, I would love, and ECW has done this with 911. Sandman lost the heavyweight championship one time and interfered in every match on the card after that. I would love to see somebody do that, just for fun. Like, it's never been done before in the main event level.
Yeah, just be the disruptor faction.
Actually, the only time I remember it ever being done is the time that Kaientai, Funaki, and Takamichinoku hijacked the Royal Rumble and interfered like 6 times in the Royal Rumble. They would come into the ring, get in the ring, get thrown out, and then later on they'd come into the ring, get in the ring, get thrown out again, get beat up and thrown out again. Like they kept interrupting the Rumble because they weren't in the Rumble.
That's
and
great.
I think that only ended because Taka Michinoku actually got hurt one time. He got thrown to the floor.
Oh, that's not good.
That's the only time I remember like anybody really, except like a one-off thing, but like really trying to hijack an event or in a show. And it just seems like it'd be amusing, especially if it was done comical by maybe like Bo Dallas or somebody. But if Bray Wyatt were to do it, it'd be a little bit more legit. And then finally there'd be a payoff in after a few times he did it where he got what he wanted or whatever. But that'd be fun. I'd like to see that. Maybe, maybe it kind of tarnishes WrestleMania, but I think that makes it better.
Well, I mean that's a bold move, though. It establishes it. Just real quick, it establishes the Wyatt says, "Wow, they just impacted, quote unquote, the WWE universe."
And then they lose on Payback and Extreme Rules the next 2 months on pay-per-view, and then it's back to being whatever.
Well, sure, but they make one of the biggest impacts ever, especially if it results in Shane being in charge and stuff like that.
Right. So. Now you said this. Now you said this before. I forget. I think it was off air that a lot of people are getting salty right now because of expectations. Because it's WrestleMania. WrestleMania should be treated different than anything else.
Sure.
It being WrestleMania, is Bray Wyatt interfering in 3 matches detrimental to WrestleMania? Like that's kind of thing. And we don't have it's a rhetorical.
Yeah.
We don't have to discuss it if it is or it isn't. But
right.
I mean, I'd like to see it, and I can argue again. I can argue both sides. Of the fence, basically why it's rhetorical.
Yeah. It's a creative. It's creative. Yeah. Potentially creative genius. Potentially marketing suicide.
Yeah, I can argue both sides of the fence on that argument. I'd like to see it, and at the same time, like WrestleMania, really? If it was Payback and he interfered in every match, it was kind of even still. It's kind of like, well, I guess it's cool. I guess we wasted our money watching this event or whatever because there's no real outcomes. But whatever it is, I can play both sides of that fence.
All right,
but let me give you my scenario here for the main event. It's the only scenario I can come up with where Roman Reigns walks out a winner and isn't booed by 100,000+ people. All right. So here we go. We're going to leave it a one-on-one match, and this is pretty odd for me. By the way, is this Intercontinental match not shaping up to be a ladder match with 6 people involved?
It seems that way,
Owens, Zayn, Jericho, Styles, Miz, Ziggler.
But do you really think that Jericho
I think
Styles...
every match should have at least 6 people in it at WrestleMania.
Yeah, but no, what I was going to say is, do you really think Jericho Styles isn't going to be just a one-on-one grudge match? Because it feels like that's what it's going to be.
This is an Angry Larry rooting interest at this point because I've seen them wrestle 3 times already. And the TV matches is tarnishing the WrestleMania match for me at this point. I want to see something different. And because Owens and Styles had that face-to-face today, and then brought up Jericho and Zayn at the same time, and because Ziggler and Miz seem to always be fighting for like a spot to fight for a title the last few weeks, and again we got that match again today as well. I just feel like instead of 3 one-on-one matches, that if you're gonna have Usos versus Dudleys and Kalisto versus Ryback as a one-on-one U.S. title championship match, then I think the Intercontinental title match becomes the ladder match. And not saying that there has to be one, but I think there's a lot of viable guys that could go into that match. And that last year's Intercontinental match went over so well.
Guys,
stupid not to repeat it with these guys and not waste another one-on-one match, tiring match between any of these guys who have already fought each other in February and March, and do it that way, and then prolong the feud, create new feuds stemming from it. That's just my feeling on it. Of course, it's going to probably be Zayn versus Owens and Jericho versus Styles, and if we even have Miz versus Ziggler at this point, or if it's not 2 guys in the Andre Battle Royal, you know what I mean? And the last thing before I get to my main, I know there's a lot of asides, but there was a lot of things I did want to talk about quickly. The Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, Duke. They finally announced it's happening.
Hold up. Did you ever get to how Reigns walks out and not gets booed? Doesn't get booed? Did I miss something?
No, I'm going to talk about that. I
Okay.
had this other theory about WrestleMania stuff.
All right.
Because I said I'm going to leave that a one-on-one match, and that made me think of other matches that I stopped
I got
making
you.
one-on-one. Yeah. So the last one is, before I get to that point, it's like clickbait for you just to sit there and
apparently
listen to me. Yeah. Big WWE news. WWE changed their font on their homepage. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Bleacher Report. So the Andre Memorial Battle Royal has finally been announced. The third annual. Cesaro won the first one. Big Show won the second one. 4 participants have already been named, and they are the Social Outcasts.
I'm excited. Yeah, baby.
Right. And they're going to fight as a team. They're going to win it together as friends. I love that stuff. I'm eating that stuff up so much too when they do friend stuff.
I know people hate them, but I like them.
I love. Do people hate them? Because I think they're hysterical, and I love when they do the friendship thing and they argue in the ring when they're supposed to be like a team. I love that stuff. Yeah. I love my comedy. But so the question I have for you is: Cesaro won it the first year, Big Show won it the second year. Is this going to be something that puts something on young people's resumes where, like, okay, Tommy was in it last year, so that's like participated in WrestleMania kind of thing on his resume. Cesaro won it the first year, so that's an accomplishment he finally has, other than the U.S. title that they seem to ignore he ever held. Or does it become something that we give to people who have dedicated their lives in the business, like the Big Show? More importantly, like, who's going to win this? Is it going to be somebody like Mark Henry, where it's like, well, he's had a great career, he's a legitimate guy to win a battle royal, so you know what, we're going to give him a win in this and put him down in the history books? Or is it going to be used for somebody to get like the next step? Because even Damien Sandow, it basically was the end of Damien Mizdow last year. But it went over so well that he finished second. And then they did nothing with it. So quickly, what do you think this battle royal means? Is it just a way to throw excess people in there and the winner really has no legitimate reasons why? Or is it going to be used as a platform or as a way to appreciate other people?
I don't know, because it's gone both ways. It's gone
right. It's gone 50-50 right now in 2 attempts.
Yeah, exactly. It's been 2 times, and it's been essentially rising star, and then it looked like he might get a repeat on that
off the height of his popularity.
Yeah,
Sandow, whatever.
Yeah, and then I was gonna say it looked like you might have a repeat of Cesaro, and then it turned to it might be Mizdow, and then Big Show you give it to, and don't get me wrong, if anybody deserves a big man award, that's why I'm not going to. That makes sense, but
I'm not canceling the WWE Network because the Big Show won a battle royal and because he's a large guy and should win battle royals. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's why I'm like, well, is this like, since it's Mark Henry's last hurrah?
Yeah, I feel like this is probably a place that you give Mark Henry one last nod, and it's the most sensible place for it to happen since it hasn't happened in any other aspect this year.
And that's part of our whole hashtag Mark Henry deserves better. It's all leading up to this moment at WrestleMania.
Yeah, exactly.
So all right, here's what we're doing. Here's our little
full
game.
Circle.
Here's our little game for next week. Okay, I want you to give me 3 names of people who are going to win this battle royal, and I'm going to come up with a list of 3 names myself, and Boggle style, category style. If either one of us agrees, those names get crossed off our list, and we're going to try to predict the winner of this battle royal.
Okay.
All right. So maybe 3 names is not enough since we're going to be crossing off, or should we do 4 or 5?
Is Mark Henry set aside though?
I'm saying Mark Henry. If you're going to say Mark Henry right now, then we'll just discard him and we'll pick unique people that aren't Mark Henry or any version of Mark Henry that he's been named ever before. We'll make that point.
Not Mark Henry, but Sexual Chocolate.
Yeah, Mizark. Or Mizark might have been X-Pac. I don't know. But, all right. So we'll do that. We'll have a little fun next week for that.
Yeah, sure. Anyone but Mark Henry.
Anyone but Mark Henry. Yeah,
no.
not
I'm saying that's who we can pick. That's most likely who's going to win. But we'll both bring 3 other names to the
you know what?
table.
It's in Texas. I think I convinced myself he's going to win. I just convinced you he's going to win. So,
well,
who
no,
knows? He's not even in it.
To convince me. So
he may not even be in it.
Yeah. I mean, Texas. It's basically this is it for him. He's the big guy. It's a big guy match. Why in the world would anyone else go over? Yeah. Even if it's like the most boring thing ever that he wins, and
it's not going to be Mojo Rawley. Let's say that. So
I don't know. He may go on my list.
No, all right, he might be. Yeah, I might throw people wacky like that on my list too. All right, let me move on to the main point here in this whole argument and the whole reason why we brought up the aside for WrestleMania matches to begin with, because I believe that I'm going to say for the record that Triple H versus Roman Reigns is going to be a one-on-one match. I think this is the first time I'm saying it. So I'm going to commit to it. It's as advertised. Now, here's the only way Roman Reigns gets over in my eyes, and that's the whole distraction by numbers, by run-ins kind of feel that I thought up. Similar to last year's Triple H versus Sting, I believe we're going to have 2 factions run out. I don't believe it's going to be DX and NWO. But maybe it's Evolution. Maybe it's Flair and Batista. And Cody Rhodes. Not Stardust, but Cody Rhodes. Let's just play along for now.
No, wait. Stardust would be on the Authority side, and then Cody Rhodes comes out on Reigns' side.
That'd be almost as good as the time I saw Undertaker fight The Undertaker as a kid. But let's keep it Cody Rhodes, because let's keep it traditional to the faction and not towards his character. Because let them separate it, because he's been doing a good job with that.
Miracle on WrestleMania Street.
Yeah. All right. So those guys are going to come out on Triple H's behalf. Now, who comes out on Roman Reigns' behalf? Obviously, it's the Usos and Dean Ambrose. So those guys collide, take each other out, make the save for each other, blah, blah, blah. They take a powder, they're out. So it's back to one-on-one, and we might have a referee down or whatever hubbub is going to happen. That's when Seth Rollins returns.
Yeah.
Seth Rollins,
I could already hear the music in my head. I was bobbing my head.
The Authority, Seth Rollins, mind you, returns. Who then lays out Triple H with his own pedigree. Roman Reigns pins. The Shield is in the ring. Reunited. The Shield helped Roman Reigns win the title. I think the fans are tricked enough, and I've said this before. I don't know if it was to you privately or on the show. I believe I said it on the show. The fans are tricked and distracted enough to cheer Roman Reigns winning the title based on the fact that the Shield is reunited. That Rollins is back, and then Rollins took out Triple H with his own move. Because any other way, and there's probably other possible ways if we really dig into the archives of how he wins and what move he wins with or whatever, that Roman Reigns could come out without the fans booing him out of the building. But the distraction of the Shield coming together again, Rollins essentially turning on Triple H, and Roman winning, I believe that's the way to get the fans involved and happy with Roman Reigns winning the title. What do you think about that?
I like it, and I love the idea of Rollins being like the surprise of the main event once again. I love the repeat factor of it, and maybe he comes out and he
maybe it's just him and no other faction, but I think you need Ambrose out there to really sell the whole the Shield is back kind of thing. The Shield is back, the Brotherhood's back, and they just helped Roman Reigns overcome the Authority.
Yeah.
I like it. I'd be happy.
I like it. I'll talk to you about something else afterward based on something you just said. But yeah, that's good. It's good. And yeah, people would freak out. People would freak out, especially if Shane has gone over too. Then it's like, Shane plus the Shield. Holy crap! What's gonna happen on Raw? Because now you don't just have a new boss. You've got the enforcers back too.
Now there's one more thing. I know this is like the fifth one more thing, but I didn't write these stuff down, and I thought about it early in the week. Now, here's my one more thing. Let's put Ziggler in that IC match. And Ziggler wins the IC match, okay? So he becomes champion. Charlotte retains. Roman Reigns beats Triple H. Do you have... What's the common link, Duke?
Say what now?
Ziggler wins the IC title.
Ziggler.
Charlotte retains. Triple H beats... Roman Reigns beats Triple H. What's the common link?
Hair.
Tap out. Coming April 2016.
Yeah, that's true.
They're all in the commercial. I mean, Alicia Fox needs to win something, but, what can she win? There's nothing for her. But those are 3 of the 4 people in the Tap Out commercial, right?
Yeah.
Tap Out's coming April 2016. Is that what the promo was?
Yeah, that's pretty funny to have that.
Well, there you go. Now the faces of Tap Out are all champions.
Oh, man.
Just a little food for thought.
Yeah, that's messed up. That's messed up that the marketing would exclusively drive that. but not beyond the realm of possibility.
No, but I mean, listen, I that better chance that happens than Steve Blackman winning the Andre Giant Battle Royal.
I don't know, dude.
By the way, is Nikki Storm not the best wrestler you've ever seen in your life?
I don't even understand that video you sent me.
How great was Rockstar Spud's entrance, though? Where he just stood there the whole time.
The whole song.
And then he sneezed. It was great.
He adjusted his knee pad.
That's the Rockstar Spud TNA needs, not
best heel ever. Best heel ever.
All right, so just a little aside here. I've been catching up on a lot of Shine and Shimmer DVDs I've had. And a lot of me not watching them has to do with my OCD to watch things in order. And I finally said, okay, I'm not getting, whatever episode of Shine or Shimmer, I can't find it. It's nowhere to be found. My friends don't have it or whatever. So I'm like, all right. So I opened up some DVDs and I started watching it. First match out of a Shimmer show, and I think it was Shimmer 69, was Nikki Storm wrestling Courtney Rush. And she just was hysterical in the ring, out of the ring. Every time the announcer announced her as being from Glasgow, Scotland, she'd get offended. I guess this is a long-running thing. She'd get offended because he wasn't saying Glasgow right. So she would say Glasgow, and then the ring announcer would go Glasgow, and she'd get pissed again. He's like, I'm saying it exactly the way you're saying it. And it became like this thing. It's hysterical. Nikki Storm is my favorite wrestler of all time. She has a personal handwritten note from the Backstreet Boys.
That's great.
It's good. I'm going to be watching Nikki Storm stuff all the time now. Just to catch up on all the inside jokes I've missed. But that's pretty much it for me, Duke.
All right, yeah, and I'm wrapped up too. Obviously, you've got our social on the screen, so hit us up there. I've been spending more time on Instagram lately than anywhere else.
What the hell is an Instagram?
Instagram has 3 times the users of Twitter. I never realized that until a few weeks ago. I'm like, wow, Instagram just overnight kicked Twitter's butt and has never relented, and Twitter is dying at the moment. So not that I don't use Twitter anymore. I'm still on it. But
I'm Crazy Larry 74 on AOL Instant Messenger if anyone's out there, by the way.
You're acting like I'm talking about some niche thing.
That's
and I'm talking about
CRZYLAR 74.
I'm talking about something bigger than Twitter. Come on. So anyway, but yeah, I've been on Instagram a lot more, even though that's not on the screen, but I believe it's the same name, Duke Zorz.
You can dial into my BBS at 480-999. I don't know where I'm going from there. I don't want to give away someone's phone number.
Yeah, they'll call somebody, and it's like the WCW hotline. But anyway. With that, yeah, we're gonna wrap it up. You got it on the screen, and like, comment, subscribe. Please, if you have any comments, let us know.
It's March 17th, 2016.
Shout out to our
St. Patrick's Day.
couple people who have been leaving comments. We've got someone every time we do a match prediction or a card prediction show. she leaves her card predictions, which is cool. And then we've got our buddy Deegan, who shows up from time to time. And
D-Gen.
I'm sorry,
like
DJ.
Generation
like
X. That's how you have to say
X.
it.
I'm sorry.
Suck it. That was more psych than
yeah, it was
Young Bucks or
we need to sing it next time.
By the way, the Usos, the Young Bucks now, we should discuss that for an hour.
Later.
Get off my computer. Goose.